I got so much motherfucking design on right now.
Break it down, bring it back, make it clap. I got 3 old thoughts, new block, where that thing. Bitches on my line, and you know.
We will talk about disciplinary intervention. So, what is disciplinary intervention? Disciplinary intervention. In this chapter, we address the disciplinary intervention an individual classroom teacher can use. In more specific terms, we address the strategies teachers can use when students do not follow the rules and procedures that have been established. The research and the theory. Some people appear to believe that disciplinary actions in almost any form are not only ineffective but counterproductive in terms of students' behavior and achievement. Four of the categories of disciplinary behaviors identified by Stitch and Coyers are particularly relevant to discussion here. They are 1. Reinforcement, 2. Punishment, 3. No immediate consequences, and 4. Combined reinforcement and punishment. Program. This section describes only two of a number of programs that emphasize disciplinary techniques: think time and receptive discipline. Think time is a highly structured program that has been shown to decrease disruptive behavior in students as well as increase student engagement. Briefly though, one of the defining features of think time is the think time classroom, a dedicated room where students are seen when teachers cannot successfully address and disruptive behavior in the context of the regular classroom. A symbiotic relationship links the think time classroom and the regular classroom. Assertive discipline. Assertive discipline is a widely used program based originally on traditional behavior modification approaches in which misbehavior results in specific consequences. Because of this, some have referred to it as being grounded in interventionist ideology. Implementing the current versions of assertive discipline involves 5 steps. The first step is focus on establishing a positive climate for discipline. The second step is for teachers to learn about and practice assertive behavior. Specifically, teachers learn the difference between assertive, non-assertive, and hostile behavior. The third step is to establish limits and consequences. The first step is following through on consequences if a student has exceeded the limits. The final step is to implement a system of rewards or positive consequences for positive behavior. Teacher reaction. Verbal and physical teacher reaction are the simplest ways to acknowledge and reinforce acceptable behavior and to acknowledge and provide negative consequences for unacceptable behavior. In teacher reaction, we have stimulus cueing. Stimulus cueing is another teacher reaction strategy. It involves providing a cue to students before inappropriate behavior occurs. For example, a teacher might determine that a specific student usually starts talking to other students around him before he engages in more severe disruptive behavior.
Tangible recognition. The first one is token economies provide focus on improving positive behaviors. Tangible recognition involves the use of some concrete symbol of appropriate behavior. In this category are referred to as token economies because they frequently involves providing some type of cheat for appropriate behavior or the cessation of inappropriate behavior. Token economy is a system of reinforcement for behavior that is managed and changed. A person must be rewarded or given reinforcement to increase or decrease the desired behavior. Furthermore, the token economy is used in changing behavior in institutional setting. Tokens are most effective when given for positive behavior and taken for negative behavior. The second one is cannot be used as a bribe. Any real recognition system should be accompanied by a true discussion of the rationale behind the system. In addition, care must be taken to ensure that actual conventions are not perceived as being used as a kind of bribe or a form of coercion against student behavior. Next is direct cause. The first one is focus of negative consequences, then positive consequences. direct cause techniques are more oriented towards negative consequences than positive consequences for student behavior. This strategy involves direct and consequence to inappropriate student behavior. One powerful direct cause strategy is time isolation. The second one is isolation timeouts. Time limit refers to moving from the classroom to a location reserved for the distracted student. Effective use of isolation time requires students to have a clear understanding of the specific behaviors that will lead to their use. In addition, students should be aware that isolation time will only be used when other attempts to correct disruptive behavior in the regular context of class have been exhausted. And the last is overcorrection. Overcorrection is a procedure used when a student has behaved in a way that destroys or changes some physical aspect of the class. For example, is a
Group contingency. Researchers and theorists, namely Little and Pomrow, 1975, generally distinguish between group contingency techniques. The first, interdependent contingency technique. The interdependent group contingency technique requires each student in the group to meet a behavior criterion in order for the group to earn credit. The second, dependent group contingency technique. Dependent group contingency technique requires a specific individual or a specific set of individuals in the group to meet a behavior criterion in order for the group to earn that belief. In the article, there is one example. For example, you can specify several types of praise if the whole class remembers to raise their hand before speaking for the anti-class period, or if they forget to raise their hand only a few times during one day. In that example, the dependent group contingency would apply if one or a few students in the class were singled out for their raised hand behavior, but the whole class received actual recognition. The dependent group contingency strategy places a great deal of peer pressure on those who have been selected. In fact, this seems to be one of the reasons why it works. However, some teachers rightly worry that this approach could embrace inattentive students. Consequently, I recommend that teachers use the dependent group contingency technique with caution. The following sketch illustrates one use of group contingencies. Home contingencies. Home contact can be a powerful form of positive and negative consequences. In its most basic form, domestic contingencies simply make parents aware of their children's positive and negative behaviors. Some forms that can make parents aware of their child's behavior are by the first, in the form of a short note or letter to parents, telephones, calls, or visits. The second, develop pre-printed notes with space where they can add comments. On a more granular level, you might devise a system of positive and negative consequences to enforce at home. This usually requires a face-to-face meeting with the parents to establish the specifics of these consequences. For example, you might meet with the parents of certain students to discuss specific class behaviors to target. Together, you and the students' parents will identify positive and negative consequences for appropriate and inappropriate student behavior. With these parameters set, you will then track student behavior and systematically report to parents so they can enact positive and negative consequences.
I fucking with these hoes,